Chesapeake Bay Farms for ice cream.
We can go to the brewery and get burgers.
So,
they are really loving all their outside space right now.
Oh, I bet they are.
Yeah.
They're lucky to have all
yeah,
that.
So much room
they're
out
like
there.
in a really good situation, I'm sure.
The shellfish aquaculture facility, so that's a nursery for art plants.
Okay.
And they're pumping water to feed their clams, and they let us tap into their water. So we just sort of gravity feed water down around that white trough up there. It fills up these tanks, and the overflow from these tanks comes out in the ditch and right back into the harbor.
Why are they shaping them? Just to untangle
So we're trying. No, it's to measure this grass because we need to know just how much grass is going in each tank. And you can't really measure it by weight because some of it's drier than others. Real compressible, so it's tough to get a good volume on it. So the most consistent volume is to fluff it into a trash can. So we're putting 9 fluff trash cans into each tank.
Okay.
So yeah, we do this weird little dance. But,
It's been a while since I've done this, but it's not been that.
the grass that we have in the tanks now is really fresh, so it's floating up really high on the surface of the tanks. And as long as it's up on the surface, all we do to maintain it daily is to press it down. And any grass that's floating up high out of the water basically acts as mulch to keep everything else wet. But as time goes on, that grass is going to start to break down and float a little bit lower in the tanks. And at that point, we can start to really stir things. Because as this grass starts to decompose, it uses up some of the oxygen that's in the tank. Sediment starts to build up on the bottom of the tank, and we want to make sure that the seeds stay well oxygenated. So that we'll have better germination rate later on. So to stir it every day, you could do a decent job with a canoe paddle or something, but the best way is to actually get in the tank, wade around in the grass, and you're basically kicking it with your feet to keep the sediment kicked up and make sure every seed moves, doesn't sit in a dead zone, a mini dead zone in the tank. And you're tearing that grass apart a little bit to help sort of speed up the process of it breaking down. And that's going to go on, after the stuff's been in the tank the first week, we'll start stirring that way. That's going to go on until at some point in early July. And by then, it will be hard to find any shoots that still have seeds in them. So by then, all the seeds are going to be on the bottoms of the tanks. And we switch over to trying to sieve the grass material out and leave the seeds in the tank. So to do that, we take advantage of the fact that the seeds are really dense. They like to be at the bottom of the water column. Everything else is less dense. And we take, let me see if I can find you one. When you're doing it in the tanks, you get just whoosh. It's like this knock on the edge of the tank, and you got to do it to music. It's crazy. You can't just sit there and work. So I'll be doing it standing outside of the tank on this side, going this direction. You'd be standing on the outside of the tank going the same direction, so we keep everything moving. So there's kind of this cool rhythm movement to it. These things, the same way you would skim stuff off the top of a pool, but it's a much bigger mesh because this is big stuff, and we want to make sure the seeds stay in. and we skim all the grass material out of the tanks. Generally, a couple people working on a tank can finish it in an hour, hour and a half. And at which point we have just in the bottom of the tank seeds and some really teeny tiny fine material that the sieves wouldn't get. At that point, usually around the end of July, we can consolidate all of that seed, the dirty seeds. And that's when we'll use a couple of tanks like the smaller green one over there. All the seed will, instead of running 10 tanks, we're running 2 small tanks. And we set up the water flow in those green tanks actually so it slowly comes up out of the bottom and over the lip of the tank. That hydrodynamically sorts the dense seeds, which will still stay in the bottom, from the really fine stuff, which will float out the top. So that's how we'll hold the seeds, and we'll get them really nice and clean. So it just, if we're doing a count, like how many seeds are in a shot glass, we know that shot glass just has seeds in it, not seeds in little bitty pieces of leaves. So we can get a real accurate count by volume of how many seeds we have. And we will hold the seeds in those tanks for a couple of months, all of August, most of September, and usually it's the end of September or early October that we'll actually plant those seeds overboard. And we're just trying to get them out as late in the summer as we can, but before the water temperature drops, so we get them out there before they start to dry.
These are the little ones.
These are the cages we keep the scallops in. We have to keep switching them out because they start to get dirty. So
Does the water end up coming up out of here or out of the other side?
Water's gonna, it's not that fancy. This is basically just a plug. The water comes into the bottom and I have an elbow, so the water is coming down in and sideways in the bottom. So it kind of spins and fills up the tank. And when it gets up here, some will go down the center, but most is going over the lip. So it's just sort of this upside down whirlpool.
Okay.
My kids will tell me, "Daddy, have you been working with eelgrass? You smell like eelgrass." It's the seeds. It's really that late. It's actually when they're in these tanks, and it's just the seeds, and there's some other real fine stuff breaking down in there. Just kind of this. I mean, it's kind of marshy smell.
A lot of times, though, depending on how good these tanks are, the ones from there, because a lot of our water flows there, you get a lot of sediment and mud and icky stuff building up too, so it kind of sometimes makes the tank smell bad. If I don't clean out the pipes.
Pipe smell. If the grass starts to kind of smell, I have had our tanks. If it's starting to smell, that means we're not doing a good job.